The email arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, right as I was reviewing the security patches for our latest client, a chain of hospitals managing sensitive patient data across 3 states. 2 sentences. That's all my sister Alexa deemed necessary to end 8 years of my life. Effective immediately, your position as CTO of SecureVault Solutions has been terminated. Please surrender all company property and access credentials by end of business today. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding something. My coffee mug, the one Alexa had given me when we started this company in her garage, sat frozen halfway to my lips. Through the glass walls of my office, I could see our team of developers working away, completely unaware that their technical lead had just been fired via email by the CEO who happened to share my last name. 8 years. 8 years of 16-hour days, of building every line of critical infrastructure from scratch, of turning Alexa's business school dreams into functional reality. I'd written the proprietary encryption protocols that became our selling point. I'd designed the authentication systems that kept Fortune 500 companies coming back. I'd been the one explaining to investors why our technology was worth their millions, while Alexa charmed them with promises of market domination. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, our lead developer. "Why is Talia Martinez moving stuff into your office?" Talia, our cousin with the fresh MBA and the complete inability to understand why password 123 wasn't an acceptable admin credential. The same Talia who'd asked me last month if we really needed all these security steps because they were slowing down the user experience. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling disconnected from my body. Through the glass, I watched Talia directing maintenance staff to remove my whiteboard, the one covered in the architectural diagrams I'd spent the last month perfecting for our new government contract bid. The walk to Alexa's corner office felt like a funeral march. Every developer I passed gave me a confused look, sensing something was wrong but not knowing what. Sarah from QA actually stopped mid-sentence during a phone call, her eyes tracking my movement with concern. Alexa didn't even look up when I entered. She sat behind her massive oak desk, the one she'd bought after our Series A funding, typing away on her laptop as if she hadn't just demolished my entire world with 2 sentences. "We need to talk," I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. "There's nothing to discuss, Arya." She still wouldn't meet my eyes. "The board made a strategic decision. We need fresh leadership in the technical department. Someone with a broader business perspective." "The board?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. "You mean you and the 2 investors you golf with every Sunday? That board?" She finally looked up, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or shame before her CEO mask slammed back into place. Talia has an MBA from Wharton. She understands scalability and market positioning in ways that pure technical knowledge doesn't account for. Talia doesn't know the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. She asked me last week if we could just turn off the encryption to make the platform load faster. She'll learn. She'll destroy everything we've built. I leaned forward, planting my hands on her desk. "Alexa, I'm not just your CTO. I'm your sister. I'm the person who mortgaged my condo to keep this company afloat during the early days. I'm the one who gave you my entire seed investment from Mom's inheritance, which has been paid back with interest," she interrupted coldly. "Your financial stake in the company is clearly documented. You'll receive your equity payout according to the termination clause in your contract." I straightened up, finally understanding. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This had been planned, calculated, probably workshopped with lawyers to ensure everything was technically legal. "You've been planning this," I said quietly. "For how long?" She returned to typing. "Security will escort you out once you've cleared your office. Please leave your keycard and laptop with reception." I didn't make a scene. That's what she expected, I think, for emotional, dramatic Arya to explode, to give her ammunition to justify the firing to the team. Instead, I walked back to my office with my head high, packed my personal items into a single box, and handed over my company laptop to the stone-faced security guard she'd summoned. But before I left, I did one thing Alexa hadn't counted on. I pulled up my personal laptop, the one I'd always used for initial development before pushing code to the company servers, and initiated a complete withdrawal of my seed investment. Every penny of the $400,000 I'd put in during the early days, which I'd never touched despite having every legal right to do so. The investment agreement I'd signed gave me the option to withdraw with 24-hour notice if my position in the company was terminated. The automatic system processed it immediately. $400,000 transferred out of SecureVault's operational account. I also did something else, something completely within my rights as the sole copyright holder of the base encryption framework. I revoked SecureVault's license to use my proprietary code. The framework I'd developed before joining the company, which I'd licensed to SecureVault for free as long as I remained CTO. The termination clause was clear. Upon my departure, the company had 72 hours to negotiate a new licensing agreement or cease using the code. My phone started ringing before I even reached the parking lot. "Alexa." I let it go to voicemail. Marcus caught up with me at my car, out of breath and confused. "Arya, what the hell is happening?" "Talia just called an all-hands meeting and said she's the new CTO. She just asked me to explain what a database is." I looked at Marcus, brilliant, loyal Marcus, who'd followed me from my previous job because he believed in what we were building. Update your resume, I told him. Tonight. That bad? Worse. I threw my box in the back seat. Tell the others, especially the senior devs. Document everything you've built, every contribution you've made. And Marcus? I turned back to him. Make sure you have copies of your performance reviews and any code you wrote outside of company hours. His face paled. You think it's going to implode? I don't think anything, I said, sliding into my driver's seat. I know. By Wednesday morning, the calls started flooding in. Not from Alexa, she was too proud for that, but from our head of engineering, our database architect, even our CFO. The licensing revocation had triggered an automatic notification to all department heads, and panic was setting in. Arya, please, David, our head of engineering, pleaded over the phone. Without your framework, we can't run the authentication protocols. Everything is built on top of it. The entire platform will have to be rebuilt from scratch. That sounds like Talia's problem now, I replied, stirring honey into my tea. I'd decided to take a few days to myself before figuring out my next move. I'm sure her MBA covered system architecture. This is going to destroy the company. No, I corrected him. Alexa's decision destroyed the company. This is just the consequence. The truth was, I'd built SecureVault's entire technical infrastructure like a Jenga tower, with my proprietary framework as the essential bottom piece. Remove it, and everything else would eventually topple. It wasn't sabotage, it was architecture. I'd told Alexa this years ago, suggested we develop alternative systems to reduce the dependency. She'd said it wasn't a priority, that I'd always be there. By Thursday, the team GitHub repository started showing some interesting activity. Talia had apparently instructed the developers to just rewrite the authentication system. The commit messages were increasingly desperate. Attempting to bypass Arya's framework, failed. Alternative encryption method, does not scale. Emergency patch, critical errors. Then, at 3 p.m. on Thursday, something catastrophic happened. The entire platform went down. Every single client, including the 3 hospital chains, 2 financial firms, and a government contractor lost access to their secured data. My phone exploded with messages from former colleagues. The word disaster appeared in most of them. Then came the screenshot from Sarah, an email Talia had sent to all clients, claiming it was scheduled maintenance and service would resume within 24 hours. She'd lied to clients about a platform crash. That alone could trigger lawsuits. Friday morning brought the news I'd been expecting. 3 major clients had triggered their emergency exit clauses. The hospital chain was the first, citing unacceptable security risks to patient data. The financial firms followed within hours. By noon, SecureVault had lost 60% of its revenue stream. But the real bombshell came from Marcus, who called me in a panic around 2 p.m. Arya, you need to know something. I was reviewing the logs before I left, and I found something terrifying. Talia's been in the system for months. Alexa gave her admin access back in September. What? I sat up straight. That's impossible. I would have seen, she created a shadow account under a different email. Arya, she's been making changes, bad changes. She disabled encryption on several client databases to improve performance. She's been copying client data to unsecured personal drives. There are HIPAA violations everywhere. If the authorities find out, send me everything, I interrupted, my mind racing. Every log, every screenshot, every piece of evidence. Use the encrypted channel we set up last year. Already done. But Arya, there's more. I found emails between Alexa and Talia dating back 6 months. They've been planning your termination since Talia graduated. Alexa promised her the CTO position before she even had her degree. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't just betrayal. This was conspiracy. There's one more thing, Marcus continued, his voice dropping. I found evidence that they've been showing client data to potential buyers. They're trying to sell the company, Arya. They've been shopping around our clients' encrypted data as part of the assets. That's illegal, I breathed. That's completely illegal. I know, I've documented everything. So has Sarah. And David. We're all leaving, Arya. Every senior developer, every engineer who helped build this place. We're all walking out Monday morning. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long moment. Then I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. Monday arrived like a hurricane. I woke up to 17 missed calls from Alexa and 43 text messages that ranged from demanding to threatening to pleading. The platform was still down. The entire development team had resigned en masse at 9 a.m., leaving Talia with 2 junior developers who'd been hired just weeks ago. But the real chaos started when the first client lawsuit hit. The hospital chain wasn't just suing for breach of contract, they were suing for gross negligence and willful exposure of patient data. Somehow, they'd obtained logs showing that their encryption had been disabled for weeks without their knowledge. I knew somehow because I'd sent them the evidence through my lawyer, completely legally, as a whistleblower report. My phone rang. Alexa. This time, I answered. You vindictive, she started. Careful, I interrupted calmly. My lawyer is recording this call. You should know that I filed a whistleblower complaint with the Department of Health and Human Services about the HIPAA violations. I've also notified the SEC about the illegal transfer of client data to potential buyers. Silence, then. You're destroying everything we built. No, Alexa, I built it. You destroyed it. I'm just making sure the authorities know exactly who's responsible for the security breaches. I'll sue you for sabotage. You revoked that license knowing it would crash the platform. I exercised a legal clause in my contract, a clause you reviewed and signed, just like you exercised your legal right to fire me. Funny how consequences work. Arya, please. Her voice cracked, and for a moment she sounded like my sister again, not the CEO. We can fix this. Come back. I'll give you a raise, more equity, whatever you want. What I wanted was loyalty, I said quietly. What I wanted was to not be stabbed in the back by my own sister for someone who thinks encryption is optional. That's not something you can fix with money. The company will collapse without you. Yes, I agreed. It will. I hung up. The lawsuits multiplied like a virus. By Wednesday, SecureVault was facing litigation from 7 different clients, 2 federal investigations, and a criminal probe into the unauthorized data transfers. The investors who'd pushed for my termination were now pushing for Alexa's resignation. I watched it all from a distance, focusing on my own next steps. I'd already been contacted by 3 competing firms offering me executive positions, and a venture capital firm wanted to discuss funding my own startup. But first, I had to deal with the legal nuclear bomb that landed on Thursday. Alexa and Talia were suing me. They claimed I'd sabotaged the company, stolen proprietary information, and violated my non-compete agreement by soliciting SecureVault employees. The damages they sought were astronomical, $50 million. My lawyer, Jennifer, actually laughed when she read the complaint. They're desperate. None of this will hold up. You didn't solicit anyone, the employees called you. You didn't steal anything, you withdrew your own investment and revoked your own code license. And sabotage? Please. You followed every legal clause in your contract. What about the whistleblower reports? Protected activity. They can't touch you for that. In fact, she smiled, a shark-like expression that reminded me why she charged $500 an hour. They've just opened themselves up to retaliation claims. This is going to be fun. The court hearing was set for the following Monday. In the meantime, more dominoes fell. The government contractor pulled out, triggering a penalty clause that cost SecureVault $3 million. The SEC froze the company's assets pending investigation. And then, the killing blow. Their biggest remaining client found evidence that Talia had been accessing their data after my termination, without authorization, trying to figure out how to maintain the systems. That was a federal crime. Friday afternoon, the FBI showed up at SecureVault's offices with a warrant. The courtroom was packed. Word had gotten out in the tech community, and everyone wanted to see the showdown between the 2 sisters who'd built SecureVault from nothing. Alexa sat at the plaintiff's table with Talia and their legal team, all sharp suits and stern faces. She wouldn't look at me. I sat with Jennifer, calm and prepared. We'd brought boxes of evidence, emails, code repositories, contracts, and most damningly, the logs showing months of illegal activity that predated my termination. The judge, Honorable Patricia Chen, was known for having zero tolerance for frivolous lawsuits. She reviewed the initial filings with a frown that deepened with each page. Let me understand this, she began, peering over her glasses at Alexa's lawyer. Your clients are suing Miss Arya Patel for sabotage, despite the fact that she followed the termination clauses in her contract to the letter. Your Honor, the defendant knew that revoking the code license would cripple the company. A code license she personally owned and had been providing free of charge? The judge interrupted. A license with clear termination provisions that your clients agreed to? The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The timing was retaliatory. As was the termination, Jennifer interjected smoothly. My client was fired via email, without warning, after 8 years of exemplary service. If we're discussing retaliation, I have 6 months of emails between Miss Alexa Patel and Miss Talia Martinez discussing plans to terminate my client once Miss Martinez obtained her degree. I watched Alexa's face drain of color. Jennifer continued, pulling out a thick folder. Furthermore, we have evidence that Miss Martinez had been making unauthorized changes to client systems for months before my client's termination, including disabling encryption on HIPAA-protected data. My client discovered this after her termination and fulfilled her legal obligation to report it to the authorities. That's a lie! Talia burst out, jumping to her feet. The judge's gavel came down hard. Miss Martinez, you will remain silent unless questioned directly. Jennifer smiled. I have the logs right here, Your Honor. Timestamped, showing administrator access from Miss Martinez's credentials, making changes that violate federal data protection laws, changes that occurred while my client was still CTO and was never informed of them. The judge reviewed the evidence, her expression growing darker with each page. Finally, she looked up. Not only am I dismissing this case with prejudice, she said coldly, but I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for potential criminal prosecution. Miss Patel, do you have a countersuit prepared? Jennifer stood. We do, Your Honor. The countersuit was devastating. wrongful termination, defamation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and violation of whistleblower protections. Jennifer had crafted it like a surgical strike, targeting not just the company but Alexa and Talia personally. But I wasn't done. While the legal battles raged, I'd been building something new. Using the contacts I'd made over 8 years, the reputation I'd earned, and the goodwill of every developer who'd watched me get thrown under the bus, I launched AITA, a cybersecurity consulting firm focused on helping companies avoid exactly the kind of disasters that had befallen SecureVault. My first clients, 3 of SecureVault's former customers who jumped ship during the chaos. They hired me to secure their data and implement the systems Talia had compromised. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Marcus, Sarah, David, and 5 other senior developers from SecureVault joined me within the first month. We operated lean, efficient, and drama-free. No MBAs making technical decisions. No nepotism disguised as strategic hiring. Just talented people doing excellent work. Meanwhile, SecureVault was imploding in real time. The FBI investigation had uncovered more than anyone expected. Talia had apparently been selling client information to competitors, thinking she was being clever about market research. Alexa claimed she didn't know, but emails proved otherwise. She'd been getting kickbacks from the deals, using the money to court investors for the company sale that would never happen now. The criminal charges came down on a Tuesday. Talia was arrested at her apartment. Alexa turned herself in with her lawyer. The news made every tech publication in the country. Sister's cybersecurity firm collapses in fraud scandal. Mom called me that night, crying. How could she do this to you? To the family? She got greedy, Mom, I said, staring at the photo on my desk, Alexa and me at SecureVault's launch party, both of us grinning with the naive belief that nothing could come between us. She forgot that the company was built on trust, not just code. And when you break trust, everything else falls apart. 6 months later, I stood in my new office, a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls and abundant natural light. AITA had grown to 30 employees and had just closed a Series A funding round of $10 million. We'd won 3 industry awards for innovation in encryption technology. The knock on my door was tentative. I knew who it was before I turned around. Alexa stood in the doorway, looking like a shadow of her former self. The criminal charges had been plea bargained down to probation and massive fines, but her reputation was destroyed. SecureVault had been liquidated to pay the lawsuits. She'd lost everything. The receptionist said you'd see me, she said quietly. I told her I'd see anyone who came asking for help, I replied, not moving from the window. Even you. She started, then stopped. Started again. I wanted to apologize. Okay. And to ask if there's any chance you'd consider hiring me, not as an executive, just anything. I need to work, Arya. No one else will even return my calls. I finally turned to look at her. She'd lost weight, her power suits replaced with a simple dress from Target. The sister I'd grown up with was somewhere in there, beneath the wreckage of her ambition. No, I said simply. Her face crumpled. Arya. Please. No, I repeated, but gentler this time. Not because I hate you, Alexa. Because you haven't learned anything. You're here because you're desperate, not because you understand what you did wrong. You still think this was about the code, about the technology, about the money. Then what was it about? It was about betraying the person who built your dreams for you, I said. It was about choosing someone's MBA over 8 years of loyalty. It was about being willing to destroy everything we created together for a buyout that was never going to happen. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I loved you, I continued. I gave you everything I had, my money, my skills, my trust, and you threw it away for someone who couldn't even understand what we'd built. That's what this was about. Is there any way to fix this? To fix us? I considered the question, looking at the sister who'd once been my best friend, my business partner, my hero, maybe, someday, but not now. Not while you're still thinking like a CEO instead of a sister. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. I hope you do. Because I've learned something important from all of this. I moved back to my desk, to the work that awaited me. Trust is like encryption once it's broken. You can't just patch it. You have to rebuild everything from scratch. And sometimes it's better to just start fresh with better security. Alexa left without another word. I watched from my window as she walked to her car. Not the Tesla she used to drive, but an old Honda Civic. She sat in the driver's seat for a long time before finally driving away. Marcus knocked and entered, holding a tablet. The IBM contract just came through. They want the full security suite. Good, I said, pushing thoughts of Alexa aside. Set up a team meeting for tomorrow. We'll need everyone on this. Already done. Also, that reporter from TechCrunch wants to know if you'll do an interview about building trust in tech companies. I almost laughed at the irony. Tell them yes, I have a lot to say about trust. As Marcus left, I looked around my office, my company, built on foundations that no one could revoke, with people who valued loyalty over degrees, and systems designed to protect rather than exploit. It wasn't the empire Alexa had dreamed of, but it was something better. It was honest. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it to find a message from Talia. This is all your fault. I deleted it without responding. Some people never learn that actions have consequences, that competence matters more than connections, and that you can't build anything lasting on a foundation of betrayal. But I'd learned, and I'd built something better from the ashes of what we'd lost. Arya Sec's motto, etched in steel letters on our lobby wall, said it all: security through integrity. It was a promise I intended to keep.